Until I was about 14 years old, I had no friends. Like, yeah, sure, I had acquaintances, people I would talk to, actually, people that would talk to me, like, occasionally. I didn't really talk to people. I had major social anxiety, and I was very scared of putting myself out there. I was very introverted. I preferred to be alone. Now, as you'd expect from what I said before, I was also very depressed because I spent so much time alone, and I didn't really spend much time with other people. I never formed like that connection with other people until I was about 14 when I was in 8th grade. I felt like this was not my fault because we're kind of fed this like lie that we're all great how we are, we're all beautiful just the way we are. But that's really not true. I had a lot wrong with me. I was very depressed, sad all the time, and like people notice. Like people would always ask me all the time, like, "Oh, like why do you always look depressed?" And like why are you so quiet all the time? Why do you never talk? And I used to get so angry at those. I never showed that anger. I never said anything. I would just sit down there with my head down and shrug like, I don't know, man, leave me alone, please. But as time went on and I finally found the first person in my life ever where I actually felt was like me. He was also introverted like me. He didn't really he didn't really like when people would say, "Look, why are you so quiet? Why do you never talk?" He didn't act like other people, and we got along very well, and I'm still friends with him to this day. After that, it became a lot easier to make friends. I kind of came out of my depression after that for a little while because I started to make more and more friends. I started to realize that people didn't want to be friends with me because I was not a very welcoming person. And to be honest, a lot of times I didn't want to be friends with a lot of people. But social connection is very important. It's very important for our brains, and we love social connection. The idea of introverts nowadays that like we prefer to spend time alone more than spending time with other people. Like back then, I would have loved to spend time with other people. It's just that I didn't have anyone to spend that time with. So I just spent that time alone. And then I just kind of got used to that. When I would, you know, think about like going and talking to a group of people or something, my social anxiety would flare up and I would get really scared. So all of this, like, I didn't have friends and it was completely my fault. I was not a welcoming person. No one wanted to be friends with me because I wasn't a very good friend to anyone. This is something that no one really tells you because it's kind of rude to say, but if you're someone that doesn't really have many friends, just take a moment to kind of look at yourself from a different perspective and ask yourself, okay, if you were someone else, would you want to be friends with yourself? And don't just say yes, right? Like leave your ego to the side for some time because this will change your life. Once you take that step back and look, you'll actually realize that maybe I'm not the best person that people would want to be friends with. And as you realize that, now we're told like, oh, don't change who you are to like, fit in or whatever, like to don't change yourself to other people's needs and wants. I actually didn't realize this until like 6 months ago. This whole, maybe I'm not that great of a person. Maybe I'm not gonna be that great of a friend. That's why people don't talk to me. Because, like I said, I made friends in like 8th grade and I kept those friends. So ninth grade and 10th grade, in the middle of 10th grade, something just happened and I don't know. I just started to notice that people started to ignore me and no one really wanted to talk to me anymore. And I kind of went back into my depression after that. And 10th grade ended up being one of my worst years of high school. Worst years of school, actually. 7th grade was also pretty bad for me. And 8th grade became fine after I made some friends. But this summer, when I actually started working on myself, I started going to the gym. I started working on my appearance, on my hair, and I feel a lot better about myself. I feel a lot more confident in myself. And I've realized that the only way to cure your social anxiety is to actually go out and talk to people. You just need to put yourself out there, right? Like, you just need to take that leap of faith. A lot of people are too scared to take that leap of faith. And so was I. When I first started like looking into how to make more friends, how to like be more social, how to be more confident, I was obviously watching a lot of YouTube videos and just reading a bunch of stuff about how to be more social. And people tell you all these tips about like, oh, like look at them here instead of their eyes, and say this, or when they ask this question, do this during small talk. And that stuff is fine, but at the end of the day, you just need to put yourself out there. See, when I started putting myself out there, it was very scary because I never did that before. But as I started to do it, I became more and more comfortable with it. And I mean, yes, I'm still a little bit socially anxious, but not nearly as much as I was a couple of months ago. And now I've noticed that I've actually been able to connect with a lot more people. This year, I made a friend like instantly on the first day of school, very easily. He was just like saying he made some random joke, and I just like responded back with something else that was funny, and we immediately just hit it off. That's never happened in my life before, but it felt amazing. I've lived my whole life that with this idea that I don't really need anyone. I'm fine with being alone, and I also had this idea that I would be depressed forever for the rest of my life, and there's nothing I could do about it. I was gonna be anxious for the rest of my life, and there's nothing I could do about it. But that's simply not true unless you have like clinical depression or something, or it's like something genetic, which for most people it's not. For most people, your depression is probably situational. It might be because of the way you view your life. You might have a pessimistic mindset or something like that. Very few people will actually tell you this because very few people don't want to be rude to you. They don't want to hurt your feelings. If the world worked based on how people felt, we wouldn't get anywhere. So if you're dealing with social anxiety, the only way to kind of get out there is to literally just put yourself out there. Start talking to someone. And it doesn't matter if you mess up because, okay, let's say there's one person you talk to and you like stutter or something. Like, in the grand scheme of things, it's really not a big deal. And as you talk to more and more people, you will become more and more confident. So going back to what I said, I have no friends. Now I do have friends. I have about 3 very close friends that I feel like I can share anything with. And then I have a very like broad amount of other friends that I'm kind of just like cool with. I'm not like friends with all of them, but like I see them in the hallways at school. I dap them up and everything. Literally just like seeing someone in the hallways, dapping them up and be like, "Yo, how are you? Like, what's good?" and everything. Like that really, you don't realize it, but it makes you happier. I know when I was very introverted, I would kind of have this mindset of when someone's talking to me, they are disturbing me. They like please don't talk to me. I just want to get away from you kind of mindset that I had. And you kind of just have to let go of that. You have to realize that people aren't trying to disturb you. They just want to start a conversation just because why not? I used to have a very big problem with small talk. As I put myself out there, I realized that small talk is actually very important. Small talk is actually what starts a conversation. And yeah, it might be very stupid. I know. I think it's pretty stupid. But like that's kind of what gets like the vibe going. When you go up to someone, you dap them up and say, "Yo, what's good? How you been?" and stuff like that. Like it kind of sets the tone for the rest of the conversation, and then you can move on to like, okay, bro, I just failed this math test. What am I gonna do? My parents are gonna yell at me, and like you just bring up stuff like that, and then the other person responds, and you just keep going back and forth, and then they bring up something else, and you reply to that, and that's just conversations, and you just have to kind of be okay with small talk, and eventually it'll just become second nature. I used to hate small talk a lot, but I don't really mind it anymore. So this whole being social thing and all, it's all just a skill. Like it's not, there's no thing that like some people are just like born social, some people are born extroverts. We all yearn for social connection. It's a natural part of our brain. We want social connection because it makes us happy. Social connection makes us feel like we belong and that we're worthy of other people's friendship. So when you kind of hide away from the world saying, no, I prefer to be alone and everything, you're taking away a very basic need from yourself. And that's not good for you. Another thing I want to mention is caring too much about what other people think. Now, I still care about what other people think. Like when I mess up or stutter or something, I still stutter a lot because, like I said, I was very socially anxious for many years. And I've only been trying to put myself out there very recently. So I still stutter in a lot of sentences when I'm talking to people. Sometimes I speed up, like I just sped up how fast I was talking and then I start tripping over my words. Stuff like that happens, and when that stuff happens, I start thinking, oh, like what is that person gonna say? They're gonna think I'm like anxious or whatever. You kind of have to just realize that people are going to think things about you. Some people aren't going to think things about you. You never know what people are thinking about you. You just have to learn to be okay with the fact that some people will be thinking negatively about you, some people will be thinking positively about you, and some people won't even have you on their mind. You never know, so worrying about it isn't gonna do you any good. I still worry about it, right? Like you're never gonna stop worrying about people's opinion completely, right? It's a natural thing that we do. But you kind of will just get used to it. You'll mess up, and to be honest, a lot of times like people won't like people won't be thinking like of you like how you think they are. Like when I mess up like or stutter or something, people really aren't like thinking, oh my god, this guy's such a loser, he doesn't know how to talk or something. Like no one's thinking that really. They might think like, oh, he stuttered, or like maybe he's like anxious or something. Who cares? They're not gonna think about it that much. It's really not that deep, honestly.